Hello and welcome to a live, in-person deprogram with Keri Smith. This is only the second one I've done, and if I see some regulars in the chat, you know that I'm not, I don't think any of you would say that I'm tech savvy. So it's a miracle that we're here today.
Yeah, right.
We did it. Please let us know. Just my husband's looking at the comments. Let us know in the chat how it sounds and if we need to make any fixes. How are the microphones? Hey, what's up? Isaiah Carter's here. Good to see you. Do you know him? Apostate Radio?
I don't think so.
Oh,
No.
You guys should know each other. Okay, so we are here. First of all, let me tell you who I'm here with. This is such a treat. This is a new friend of ours who I've had the pleasure of talking to a couple times now. He's a writer. He writes for a couple different Christian outlets. He also writes for the Federalist, and he's done a couple. We've done maybe 2 or 3 appearances together, but never in person. Mr. Mikale Olson, or
That's
Mick.
That's me. Yep. Yeah, Mick is good. My name on social media is Mikale. It's my full name, but yeah, Mick for short is good. So I'm happy to be here. This is the first in-person podcast I think I've ever done.
Oh, it's only
a lot of firsts happening here.
I'll tell you, it's only gonna go up from here.
I hope so. Yeah.
This is a good starting place.
Right.
Yeah. Welcome to my haunted house, by the way. That's where he walked in. We didn't even have time for the house tour. Kind of, we're like, here's the coffee station.
Yeah.
And then it was like, okay, we're just gonna get to it. We have to get going. So
no, this is great.
But
I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad you're here. So wait, come here, Tiger. So why don't you tell people who, I know I said you're a writer, and just tell people, if they're not familiar with you, what kinds of stuff are you interested in writing about, and a little bit about yourself. And
so right now I'm writing part-time for Not the Bee, which is like the Babylon Bee's actual, real news site. I started doing that about 6 months ago now, so I've been doing that for a little while. I also have published quite a few op-eds with Christian Post, writing specifically about Christian nationalism, woke right, critical theory, stuff like that, which we'll get into some of that today, obviously.
And you're for all of that?
I'm for all of it. I'm a big
it's a joke,
critical
guys.
theorist. Yeah, no. So that's kind of the main stuff I've been writing about, I would say. And then on Twitter, that's mostly what I post about, is stuff in relation to those topics. And it's definitely been fun getting all the blowback. And
you've been withstanding a lot of blowback. Can we talk about real quick before we get into the interesting experience you and I had yesterday here in Texas? This phrase, the phrase I use in the description is that you and I went to a woke right church yesterday.
Yes.
And can you just define, there's a lot of people who still don't like that phrase, and I completely understand why. I didn't like it for a long time, but just so we're defining terms, what do you mean when you say woke right?
So it's essentially another way to say critical consciousness or critical theory. Critical consciousness is the embrace and application of critical theory. Critical theory is this, classic Marxist oppressed for suppressor narrative. There has to be a cultural hegemony or some power or structure or certain group of people or institution that exists that controls everything in society for their benefit at the detriment of everybody else. So it's like the bourgeoisie proletariat kind of thing. And this is obviously how the left operates. They do this with white people. White people are the cultural hegemony that need to be torn down. That's their critical theory. They do it with other things as well. The right-wing people that are engaging in this do the same thing, but instead of white people, it's Jews or fill in the blank, whatever demographic or institution they want to attack at the time. And so that's essentially what it is.
So they view certain identity groups as having power or being oppressors.
Yeah, or like neo-fascism is another way to say it, where they're kind of using the same operating system, I guess you could say, of the left, but their political conclusions, you could say, are different. Where communism or leftism is radical egalitarianism, where everybody's equal, everything is equal, nobody can have a different outcome than somebody else, whether socially or politically or financially. The other side is radical hierarchy, which we'll get into this a little bit with yesterday, because there's some things said that were kind of like a little bit alluding to that, which is this radical hierarchy. Everything is hierarchical. Everything is top down. There's no egalitarianism at all, which I think both are equally problematic in their own right. But both of those use the same kind of critical methods, you could say, to both ideologically and tactically to push their whatever political agenda that they have. So that's essentially what it is.
And as a Christian, do you see what we're calling woke right?
Yeah.
And I'm putting that in quotes because I know some of you don't like the phrase, so insert whatever.
And the phrase is kind of an oxymoron on purpose.
Yes.
So people think of it as, when they hear woke, they just think of like the blue-haired BLM lesbian free Palestine people down at the Capitol building. But it's basically right-wing people that say they're right-wing that have that are ideologically left and their tactics are left. They're claiming to be right-wing, they act like leftists. So right-wing people acting like
they have leftist beliefs and leftist behaviors and tactics.
Which they try to say they don't have leftist beliefs, but you can't have leftist tactics and not also be adopting at some level the belief system or the underlying presuppositions to those tactics.
Yes.
So, but they tried to skirt around that, but I don't think they're doing a very good job.
Some of the leftist tactics I've seen them endorse, and if you guys are not on X very much, you may not have seen this, but some of the ones who claim to be Christian and claim to be on the right, they endorse Machiavellianism. They come right out and say, we need to be more Machiavellian, like we need to be more manipulative and dishonest, and we need to
ends justify the means.
The ends justify the means. We need to disguise that we want power by any means necessary.
They're essentially admitting that they're liars. Yeah. And then they also are telling us that we should trust them. Like, why would I trust if anyone that says they're Machiavellian? I now have a reason to not trust anything they say. Right. They're going to say anything that's going to be convenient for them or for their political goal. And it's so dishonest from the top down.
So as a Christian, explain how you've seen this enter the church. Have you seen it enter the church?
Yeah.
And how does it compare to woke left entering the church?
I think it's similar. I think so. Both extremes politically, and you see this in the 20th century with, Germany's push for fascism and the Third Reich and all of that stuff, Nazism. They played, and I wrote an article about this a little bit, talking a little bit about this for Christian Post, where they kind of played off of the rightful fears people had, communism and Marxism that was growing in Eastern Europe at the time under the Soviet Union, and they provoked those fears and said the way to solve this problem so we don't get overrun by communism is this extreme over here, fascism, is Nazism and things like that. So they always prey off of fear, and it's usually a legitimate fear, but then the solution they offer is an equally opposite extreme that's going to be just as detrimental as the thing that they say they're trying to save you from. And so I think that's, fast forwarding now, that's exactly, I think, what's going on with the woke right, especially in Christian circles. A lot of Christians are rightfully upset about the left. There's the whole big EVA thing within institutions like the SBC or Acts 29 or Gospel Coalition or Christianity Today, all these big, even like the PCA, different places where they've been overcome in many ways by leftism. And these woke right people like Joel Webbin and Stephen Wolfe and all these guys played off of that fear and then tried to funnel people into their, other dialectic, you could say, the equal opposite extreme.
The equal and opposite extreme.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were kind of woke lefty pastors before.
Yeah.
They were lefty.
Like Joe Webbin was. He was like, he was pro lockdowns at one point, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. He was Acts 29.
Yeah, he was Acts 29. Yeah.
The Vineyard Church and, the hippie kind of youth pastor sort of.
And a lot of these guys have been all over the place. And I think that's partially what fuels their anger or resentment or their push against these big Christian institutions that have been around for a while. It's not even that they necessarily disagree with the underlying ideology, because they're now openly embracing critical theory, the very thing that they were accusing the Gospel Coalition and Tim Keller and all these people of embracing. So it's like, okay, you really didn't actually disagree with them. I think they're just jealous. I think that they wanted to be these people. They wanted to be running this, like even like Eric Kahn, he's a former SBC guy. Most of these people were in Acts 29 or the Southern Baptist Convention or one of these institutions at one point. And it's like they were trying to scale the ladder, and Big Eva cut the ladder out from up, and now they're upset and angry, and they're pushing these other things. So I think that's where a lot of it comes from.
Why do you think the extremes do well online, whether it's woke left or woke right?
I think because it's simple and people don't have to think. And most people, especially in today's day and age, we're just so obsessed with short-term, like very short content that's not actually going to force you to think about anything. And they want immediate solutions to problems. And I don't know. I think it has a lot to do with that. Maybe it's just part of human nature. We're sinful in our nature. We want things our way. We are like hell bent towards revenge and
Yes.
all this stuff towards other people when we're wronged. I mean, that's just anybody that's a human has that capability, of course.
That Adam nature.
Yeah, I think it's that. I think and these extreme movements overly simplify anything, and they make it seem like it's a real solution, whatever they're proposing, and then they prey on that sinful nature of yours, and then get you to even think that maybe that sinful nature is actually a good thing, like that your desire for revenge is actually a good thing, and the other side deserves it.
I've seen them online.
Like we're going to crush our enemies, like this kind of stuff.
Crush our enemies. I've seen them outright do close to manifestos, Twitter manifestos about the benefits of revenge, and how if you don't want revenge, and if you're not willing to extract revenge, there's something wrong with you. And it's like, well,
it's all resentment. It's just I think that's their primary motivation is fear and resentment. They're scared of persecution. They're scared of not having power, because if they don't have power, then they're not in control. And if they're not in control, then they could be ostracized or persecuted, whether it's politically or religiously. They're scared of just people interfering with their lives in different ways, which again, all those fears are legitimate to some degree. I understand them, but it just shows that they're fundamentally not trusting in God, which is weird because they claim to be Christians and then they claim to worship a God who is all powerful and all knowing and all good and all these things that we as Christians all believe. But then the way that they act shows they don't really believe that. Because if they actually believe that, why are they so scared all the time? And why, as a result, why are they trying to control everyone and everything? If you truly believe that, you're not going to feel the need to do that.
Right.
So, I don't know, but
it does well online, and some of it
has
been escaping it's been escaping into the offline world.
Yes.
Now there is a church near me that I called in the description a woke right church, and it's a pastor who I think you and I talked about before. We were talking about examples of the woke right. Joel Webbin, who runs Right Response Ministries, and friends. I know 3 families who have left that church, and their stories are theirs to tell. If any of them are willing to tell them publicly, I will help them do that. But I've not heard great things about what goes on there. And so you were coming to town and you said, let's go see.
Yeah.
Let's go visit the church and just see what it is.
I didn't come to town for that specifically, but it just happened that we were doing this already. And we were like, hey, let's go and check this place out. So if anyone's I don't know what accusations I'm gonna get for like coming down here to cause trouble. That was not my intention. I was coming down here to visit friends, and this just happened to work out. But yeah, so I messaged you. I'm like, hey, we should go check this out.
And I never
go and observe and see what's going on there.
And full disclosure, like I had some interactions with him about 2 or 3 years ago because my church got kicked out of our meeting place in Georgetown because my pastor, Bradley Helgerson, spoke at a city council meeting, and several mothers from our church spoke also against a mural that the middle school had painted. They had 10-year-olds paint a mural on the town square of like a kind of sexuality flags. Because our church spoke against it, there was someone on the Arts and Council Board at Georgetown that was also on the board of the nonprofit where we rented this old historic theater. Long story short, they terminated our rental contract, even though we had paid up front and for many months, refunded the money, and we lost our meeting place for a while. And so Webbin's church had reached out, or we did a joint service with them on the lawn because we were meeting on the lawn.
Yeah.
And I thought it was great.
Yeah.
And they came, I was like,
and how long?
This was probably 3 years ago now.
Okay.
And I thought, how lucky are we to pastors here and, make church being awesome and
Right.
And was messaging me for a while about coming on my show or having me on his show. And anyway, I'll just say this since I don't think I've mentioned live before. I ended up dropping the ball. It wasn't because I didn't want to do it. It was just I was in the middle of my husband and I were moving. We had this house to renovate. I had a lot of stuff going on. And I always meant to I liked the stuff I saw him posting, and I was like, I'm gonna get back in touch with that guy at some point.
Yeah.
So then cut to in the past year, suddenly the kinds of stuff he was sharing was not what I remember from 3 years ago. It was veering into this place that we talking about is like woke right.
Yeah, and that's a weird thing about a lot of these guys, whether it's Eric Kahn or Joel Webbin or others that have come out of this movement that we're calling like Christian nationalism or woke right. There's different words to use for it. A lot of these guys I liked for years. I watched, or AD Robles, I used to watch his YouTube channel all the time when I lived here in Austin, because I lived here in Austin for a few years during, the height of the COVID lockdowns and the vaccine craziness, and when, things were imploding inside the SBC and Acts 29 when all this woke stuff was coming out. And I would turn to these guys because I would just go on YouTube and search like what's going on. I want some information as to what's going on in the SBC, what's going on with Acts 29, because the time I went to 29, and I was in that history with the SBC and things like that. These were the guys that I found online that were speaking truth about this stuff, at least. And I still think a lot of what they said originally about this stuff was true. And but the where this has gone since then is a very dark place and a different place than what I would have ever expected it to go. And maybe that's where it was intentionally leading the whole time, and I just didn't see it originally. Or maybe they switched it up. I don't know. I honestly don't know.
Let me break in just for a second because I'm getting a lot of. Do you see these comments?
Move your microphone up. Your microphone's like.
Oh, okay. Do you see these comments about the sound?
Because I was messing with something.
Oh, okay. Hold on, guys.
Does mine sound
you need to
good?
Be closer here.
Closer?
We're doing a tech.
Okay.
We're doing interrupting for a tech.
Is that better?
So, yeah, I was trying to fix the audio and it disconnected it for a second.
Oh.
Do I need to repeat?
Yes.
Anything?
Let's. It's Keri's mic. Okay. Let me just before you repeat it. Let me just make sure this is because I don't want to have to interrupt again. Both of your sound, says Rodney. Okay. Sorry, I wasn't looking at this and I'm just looking garbled. Okay. I can hear myself. Okay. Hey, Dion. It's better now, says T-Swan. Y'all sound fine.
Does mine sound better?
Everything sounds good. Keri was more garbled. Okay, we're good. We're good. Thank you. Thanks for being patient with us as we figure this out, because this is only the second live I've done with a person here.
Yeah.
And so we're going to get better each time. I appreciate you guys.
Next time we'll rent Joe Rogan's studio and he's just down the road. So.
Next time, I need a tech guy. I wonder what Joe Rogan's tech guy is doing.
We need to hire Jamie. Yeah, what's he doing?
What's he doing? It's so funny. Okay, I want you to repeat the part about, or at least summarize how you're talking about, like you used to listen to a bunch of these guys, and I think just quickly I'll say in the chat, I know there's a lot of people who, as we've been talking about these things, they've also said, hey, there's people like Candace Owens who suddenly seem to have gone off the reservation, who I used to respect and follow and share their stuff, and now I'm like, what is happening? And so you're kind of saying about these guys.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it's like they started there and then this was where they were headed the whole time, or them saying, like, even Candace Owens building trust with everybody by attacking BLM and doing all this stuff that at the time I thought it was great. Yeah, she had the whole documentary about BLM. I thought that was awesome with Daily Wire. A lot of her reporting before that was good. And I don't know if she was doing that to just build trust with an audience, so then she could kind of do the old bait and switch,
right?
Say, and I don't know if that's what these people were doing, like Bill Webbin and AD Robles and Stephen Wolf and all these guys, or if this is just, or if they did just switch and it wasn't an intentional manipulation from the beginning.
If they did just follow, I tend to think usually that it's more of just they just are willing to go, where they think the culture's going, or like I'm going to sound like morally judgmental because I am. I think it's a lack of character when people are willing to, like, I've had some people say to me, well, I don't think Candace Owens is really an anti-Semite. She's just saying stuff. And I'm like, yes, exactly. I don't necessarily think she is either.
It doesn't matter if they
it doesn't matter
yeah.
if she personally believes it, but she's willing to say those things.
Yes.
Because that's popular right now, or it gets her an audience, or she's, who knows why, but the point is she's willing to say awful things and to lie. She's outright lie.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lack of character for a lot of them.
Even, you know, attacking, she had that whole rant on her, or on Tucker's show recently, where she was attacking Seth Dillon and Joel Berry. And she said that something along the lines of, this isn't a direct quote, but it was something like, that they smile or are happy when, you know, Palestinian children die, and that they're horrible people, call them Judas. It's like, none of that is based in reality at all.
No, that's based in reality.
And I even shared the tweet of Seth Dillon sent it to me. He was like, hey, here's the tweet that Candace was apparently calling betrayal, where I betrayed her. And the tweet was just him explaining, it's on my Twitter if you guys want to look at it. It was just explaining, here's what the phrase Christ is King is, you know, here's how it's being used. This is why a lot of Christians are objecting to this phrase being used online right now. The same reason we object to somebody taking the Lord's name in vain in any context. People can use the name of God and mean something different than what they're actually saying. And they can use it in a way that's dishonoring. That's obvious. Like, everybody should understand that. Yes. That's all Seth said.
It's just like the way that the left says Black Lives Matter, and that's not what they mean.
Exactly. It's the exact same. It's the exact same formula. Use an innocent sounding phrase that makes you sound like a bad person if you object to it, like Black Lives Matter. You disagree with the Marxism behind that movement, and they're like, oh, you don't care about black people? You don't think Black Lives Matter? That's the game they play, and I think they intentionally pick phrases like that to hide their extreme movement behind, as a way of criticism in that way. And so I think that's exactly what the Christ is King thing, used by guys like Nick Fuentes, who explicitly said this is an anti-Semitic, you know, phrase, and this is to provoke Jews and things like that. These guys have just outright said this. Candace Owens picked up on it, and I think she's the one that really popularized that whole using the phrase. Now all of these woke right people are just it's in their Twitter bio. They're saying it on their podcast constantly. They're tweeting it constantly,
and they don't behave like they believe Christ is King, as
exactly.
You said. Yeah,
they're taking the Lord's name in vain in a very literal sense.
Yes,
that's what people are objecting to. We have no problem with saying that Jesus is Lord and that He's King. Yeah. Nobody's against that. That's a Christian. We're against how the phrase is being used.
Yeah. Let me just put it on the screen. Now you can't see this, but I've got it here. This is her lie in the Tucker Carlson interview, where she said Seth Dillon like defamed her and was a Judas and stabbed her in the back. And this is all he said, is the argument is not that Christ isn't King, or that we shouldn't say Christ is King. It's that not everyone is saying Christ is King in good faith.
Yeah.
There's plenty of evidence of that. And there are good reasons for Christians to find that objectionable. Absolutely. Christians above everyone should find that as objectionable.
Yeah.
When a non-Christian gets angry and curses by exclaiming Jesus Christ, they've taken the Lord's name in vain. Christians find that objectionable, and they find it objectionable because God Himself prohibits it and says it offends Him. Your argument is like saying, I don't care if people take the Lord's name in vain and say Jesus Christ is a curse. At least His name is being said, no matter who says it or what they mean by it. So if someone says Christ is King with the wrong heart and intent to attack or to provoke a Jewish person, for example, they are coupling abuse of the Lord's name with disrespect for another person made in His image. I don't see why any Christians would not find it objectionable.
Yeah.
I appreciate you engaging the critics. We need more of this dialogue. That was his very polite.
And that had nothing to do with he didn't even name Candace there.
Yeah, but he was replying to her. Like, that was his polite, like, after talking to her, according to her, he reached out privately, which again is what a friend should do. And he's basically saying, I disagree with you. And he's doing it in a very polite way. And as someone who I think would make his behavior there, Jesus would not be ashamed of his behavior. He didn't act like a butt.
Yeah. That's being a good friend, is rebuking a friend when they're wrong and being honest with them. He's not being a yes man. I think these people like Candace and Tucker, they are looking to surround themselves with yes men.
Yes.
And if you challenge them or disagree with them, even in a respectful way like that, they're going to accuse you of horrible things, of being a Judas and a betrayer, and you stabbed me in the back, and I was your friend. They always use this, like, I was your friend. Well, a good friend is going to tell you when you're wrong.
Yeah.
A good friend isn't going to sit there and let you say things that are wrong and not say anything about it and not have a conversation with you. And so who's being the bad friend there? It's not Seth. It's the other way around.
Yeah. And it's also it's just that I want to get back on the subject of where we visited yesterday, but since we went on this rabbit hole and this just happened, it wasn't just the lie that she and Tucker engaged in about Seth. It was also, then at the end, they tacked on a lie about James Lindsay, where they both pretended, this is like the third time now that Tucker Carlson on a video has pretended like he doesn't know who James is, which is just a weird gaslighting thing. Like, just, it's immature, but okay, if that's what you want to do. And then they follow it up. They say they don't know who he is. And then they say, he's the guy who cheers when Palestinian kids are killed. He doesn't do that.
Yeah.
You just casually. And so when I saw that, I was like, I feel like for the longest time, I saw Tucker taking that turn too, and I didn't want to believe it. And I had people telling me, Keri, he's taking that turn too. And I was like, no, I liked him so much. I don't want to see him go down this path. And now they were right. Those people who warned me of that. And he's to lie about someone so casually tells me you don't have a conscience at all. Like, you're willing to do anything. And I will never trust you again on anything, like the way that they behaved in that clip.
And it's intentionally, because this is I can relate to that, because it took me a while to get to the point where I actually, realized, oh, these people are not being honest with me.
Yeah.
Like, because I liked, again, because they did such a phenomenal job building trust with everybody for years. It takes a lot to get to the point. I had the same experience with a lot of the big Eva people, in the SBC, like kind of what I mentioned before, or Gospel Coalition. I used to really like a lot of those guys, and I would read all their stuff, and I read their books and all this. And then watching how they behaved during COVID and how they behaved during, the BLM stuff. They were just openly embracing all this woke garbage, pushing critical race theory. It's like I couldn't believe what I was seeing at first.
Yeah.
And I think that probably a lot of people can relate to that. I feel the exact same way with this now. It's like it's like a repeat of all the same stuff, but now it's on the right instead of the left. And
you find out who goes along to get along, like you did with the woke left. You found out who had no backbone, or at least
who never actually meant what they said in the first place.
Yeah,
it was just the convenient cultural thing where they thought the culture was moving at the time in evangelical circles. Speaking of Big Eva. And now it seems to be going this way, and they're just going to, we're just going to go along with that, just completely contradicting all the principles they said they had in the first place. And so with Tucker, it's kind of the same thing. I liked him for a long time, as a lot of people did. And then I remember talking to guys like James Lindsay and other people in this space, just constantly asking him questions like, is this really, is he really saying this? Like, I just couldn't even believe it. This last interview for sure is like the giant nail in the coffin for me. Oh, okay, these people are intentionally lying. They cannot. There's no way they don't know that they're lying. It's so obvious at this point. Like, just the things that they accuse James. Also, the pretending they don't know James Lindsay is hilarious.
It's just it's really gaslighting lie.
They talk about him all the time.
I know they talk about him all the time.
For not knowing who someone is, they sure talk about him a lot.
Also, if you say you don't know who they are, and then you say a lie about them, they're the person who does this. They
don't know who he is, but they talk about him all the time. And then they're going to say things about his character while they're also saying they don't. I'm like, okay, now you're a liar. That's what that means.
And to me, it makes me like I said, I'll never trust either of them again. And it's also very offensive that they wear the cloak of Christianity, and I think take the name of the Lord in vain every time they pretend to be. To me, it's like, there's no question about anymore. Now that I've seen how you behave, nobody could say, it wouldn't sit right with you to tell lies like that. Like, Christ he wouldn't be able to do it. Like, it would bother you. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Christ would sear your soul for doing that. Like, you would feel guilt and remorse and shame.
At least, if you sin in that way, you'd at least eventually get to the point where you confess and repent.
Yes.
And they never hit that point.
Which
is like, I can understand everybody sins. Everybody does things that are wrong, obviously. But the Christian response is to repent of your sin
Yes.
and to acknowledge that you did something wrong. They never hit that point. And it's like with it's biblically, how do you tell someone's a Christian? It's not, the Bible doesn't say you'll know them because they say they're Christians. It doesn't say you'll know them because they use all the right Christian lingo. It
because
has
they
nothing
put
to do
Christ
with
as
what
king
you
in their
say.
bio.
It has everything to do with what you do and how you act.
Yes, exactly.
And that there's this massive disconnect, obviously, with these people between those two things.
This is why I was so grateful to discover you. A lot of Christians on X, like who I had not been familiar with before the past year or so, and including you, Cody Lawrence, Lucas Curcio, Will Spencer, like Gabriel Huddleston, like a whole bunch of Christians who are speaking out against these usurpers, like these people who are pushing a false, in my opinion, pushing a false doctrine and pretending it's Christianity in the same way that the woke left did in the churches and went into the churches. Yeah.
And they're trying to seize institutions and embed themselves. And, they're doing this with the Federalist. They're doing this with the Blaze, other places where they're trying to ride the coattails of trusted institutions so that people automatically, the Federalist published them. They must not be that bad. Oh, the Blaze, look, they're out the
left did.
Yep, that's exactly what the left did. Every strategy and technique that we saw the woke left implement, they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And it should be obvious to everybody. I think it's becoming a lot more obvious.
It is becoming more.
But it should be even more obvious to people at this point, especially all of us that were paying attention during the rise of the woke a few years back. They're doing the exact same thing. And so
I will tell you, Mick, I get people regularly in my comments, be it on YouTube or Facebook or X or wherever, who are saying, okay, I wasn't with you talking about this at first, but I see it now. And that's happening every week. And that makes me feel, okay, people are starting to open their eyes to it like they did to the woke left.
Yep.
And that's a good thing. The more people that can see it and can clearly say, hey, this is at odds with Christianity and this is at odds with conservatism. Now, some of these guys are now openly saying we are not conservatives. And some of those who are saying that are acolytes of Joel Webbon. And Joel Webbon
Stephen Wolf's a big one that said that. He's had several posts. He's been very open about that. If embracing a critical methodology or critical theory, if that makes me not a conservative or constitutionalist or whatever anymore, then I'm not. So he's tweeted that multiple times, at least that I've seen. I don't know how. I don't really watch him much on podcasts anymore. I've just tried to tune him out. But yeah, they say this now. The American Reform, which is the Christian Nationalist primary publication. It's like their version of, the Federalist or the Daily Wire or something like that. They just released an article recently where they said why we need to embrace critical theory. Just straight up saying that's the title of the article. Wow. Something like that. And
they're just openly.
I shared it on my Twitter if anyone wants to go look at it. But they're just openly saying this.
I don't understand. I still get people once in a while, like I said, there's more every day who are like, okay, I see it now. I get it now. But I still get the holdouts who are like, this isn't a thing. And they're not leftist. I'm like, they are literally telling you 100%. To embrace critical theory.
Yeah.
Some of them are saying that we need to do reparations for white people.
Yeah.
Seizing property from some people and giving it to other people based on race, which is what the leftists want to do. Some of them are saying we need to collectivize everything, but instead of calling it Marxism, they're saying redistributive.
They're National Socialists, which is what the Nazis were.
Yes,
literally that's what these people are. You have guys even like Joel Webbon, which we'll get into the Joel Webbon stuff here. They were where him and his co-host Wesley Todd did a podcast a while back. I wrote an article about this as well, where they were talking about what they want the government to do as far as churches. They want to have the government essentially, lay out what proper doctrine is for churches and deem those churches that are in line with their version of what proper doctrine is as faithful churches, and then have the government, have literally military task force go around to how many tens of thousands of churches exist in this country, to every church, and
seize the church,
seize the church property and their and their money without payback, which is wildly unconstitutional on many levels, and then give it to congregations that they deemed faithful.
And so it's
it
the
sees
state.
the means of production.
They're saying the government should do this, and they don't see any problem.
Is communism. That's exactly what that is. And they said it so casually. They're just like, not. Yep, that's exactly what you can't say we're crazy for calling them woke or communist at this point, because they literally are.
Because they are, and that you don't see a problem with that. You give the government that power, and then it's leftists in the government, and they decide your church, your church is not faithful. They're going to take it from you and give it to a woke congregation,
not paying you back, seizing all your resources, giving it to it's seizing the means of production, redistribution. Yeah, that's socialism. And you know, Stephen Wolf saying he's for universal healthcare, and as long as the nation that's doing it is ethnically homogenous, or they're all the same race of people.
Oh, I see.
Oh, who does that sound like? The Nazis. That's exactly what they believed. So
he's for Obamacare, but it needs to be
for all white
people. Okay.
Yeah. So, but he of course clarifies to try to give it possible deniability. They'll say things like, well, but we don't think this will work in the United States. They're not trying to push this in the United States. But, you know, theoretically, how this should work. It would work if it was all white people. It would work if it was all, you know, Japanese people, or somewhat of a homogenous nation.
Yeah.
But they in principle agree with those ideas.
Yeah.
So it's just hilarious then when they get so angry when people call them woke right, or they'll say there's no such thing as the woke right.
Okay, so there's a guy in my comments, T-Swan, and he's our resident.
Yeah.
Now, T-Swan, don't get offended. I'm going to call you our resident woke right guy. If you want a different name, you tell me how to. But no, I like that you're here, because I enjoy your comments and getting to understand how you think. And he's in the chat right now saying, "Why would we ever let leftists back in power?" And so that's they are literal fascists.
These people are leftists. That's the point.
Yes.
So there's this people call it horseshoe theory, where both political, and this is of course like in you know, during World War II in the 20th century, all of these different regimes, whether it was, you know, the Third Reich or the Soviet Union, or all these dictatorial regimes, they either claim to be fascist or communist. If you really break down what was happening, it wasn't really that much different. You can't really tell the difference between one society or another as far as the top-down structure of the government, the, you know, revoking of human rights and basic liberties, the seizing property, redistributing it to whoever their friends are, their political friends are. And so once you break down what they're not only doing with given the application of their ideas, but you know, kind of what we were explaining in the beginning, the operating system behind how they view society at large, it's very, very similar. So I would just, for anyone that's like, but these people are right wing and we can't let leftists in power, I would just challenge them and say they are leftists. That's our whole point.
But regardless
no, that's all good. Yeah.
Well, regardless of whether you understand what Mick is trying to say there about like they actually are leftists, that's why woke right is an oxymoron, because they pretend to be on the right, but most of them will come right out and tell you nowadays we're not conservatives, we're fascists. They will say
National Socialists. They embrace critical theory. Go down on the list. It's like, this is exactly what the left believes.
But all of that aside, I think it is a very unrealistic and childlike idea, not to pick on you, T-Swan, but to say we're going to support a government that's so authoritarian and tyrannical. They're never going to let anybody that we don't like into power. We are not going to have elections anymore, and it will always be someone who is good to us, a benevolent dictator. Right? It's always going to be a benevolent dictator, and they're never going to abuse.
The crocodile's never going to eat them.
Yes, we're going to give them all of this power, right? And it's never going to be abused, and they're never going to use it against us or our children or our children's children to restructure the government in such a way. I think it is incredibly naive. If you look at history, this happens over and over, where it's like you get these dictators where, you know, it's just they're going to punish the bad people and reward the good. And then what happens? They punish everyone.
Stalin himself. Look what happened to him. Like, I mean, this idea, there was that Jubilee interview that went viral a week or two ago with a guy who was saying, you know, he admitted he was a fascist, and he said he liked Carl Schmitt, the Nazi philosopher.
They all talk about Schmitt.
And then one of the things he said was, we're going to use democracy to get or dictator or unbound executive, as these people like to call it. Which I don't know how you can be a Christian and believe in that concept. That's a whole other thing. But they want their unbound executive. They want their dictator with unlimited power, and they're going to get to that point with democracy. But then once they have that, then they're going to, get rid of democracy, and everything's going to be fine. Then he's going to be benevolent. And then the guy that was on the other side of the table in the debate was like, well, how do you know that kind of power isn't going to be used against you at some point? How do you know you're not going to be under the boot?
Right.
And he was like, oh, that's not going to happen.
How do you know?
How do you know that? It's happened every time in history,
time.
every single time.
Look at read Animal Farm. Look at what happened.
That's the nature. That's human nature. It's like these people fundamentally don't understand human nature.
You do, I find that's a great way of putting it. Is I think it's funny because I used to see this with the woke left too. The Marxists is sometimes I think it's just they have a very childlike and naive view of the world because they don't understand human nature.
Yes.
And they don't and I found this sometimes with ANCAP people, anarcho-capitalist people, especially the atheist ones I know, who seem to be in this delusion of like, we can get rid of all government and everything's going to be so
social
much better.
Constructivism.
And I'm like, you don't understand human nature. You don't even understand yourself and your own capacity for evil as a human. That's why we need Christ, because I think because you don't know that until you don't understand. What is that C.S. Lewis quote? Like, no man has ever understood how very bad he is until he's tried very hard to be good.
Yes.
And so until Christ, like, I had no concept of my own capacity for evil. I was one of those clueless leftists who was like, I'm basically a good person.
It's like, no, we're not.
No.
And anyone this is the irony, is anyone that claims to be a Christian should fundamentally understand it, because that's the bedrock of what it means to be a Christian.
Yes.
You recognize your own depravity. And that's the beautiful thing about the Constitution, is it recognizes our own depravity.
Yes.
And it separates powers as a result. That's why it's worked so well for so long.
Yes.
And why it's allowed for all the human flourishing that exists, because it keeps our own human nature in check, which, like, with whether it's the woke right or the woke left, which is, again, it's ironic that either of them claim to be Christians at some point, which a lot of them do, especially on the right. They have the same worldview that a lot of postmodernists or secular humanists have in regards to human nature, where as long as you change the environment that we're in, then human nature will cooperate and behave.
Yes. That's not true.
It's like the opposite's true. It doesn't. The environment does not matter. Look at the Garden of Eden.
Look at the Garden of Eden. They were in a perfect paradise.
Yeah, it does not matter. That doesn't work. It's never worked. It never will work until Christ comes back. And the best thing we can do as far as human government right now is to separate powers like we have currently, so that we can actually hold evil people accountable. Because if a certain collective has all the power, like, what do we think is going to happen? How do we think? They're humans too. They have a nature, and I guarantee people that want that kind of power over people are probably, like what you're saying, not even aware of their own capacity for evil, and which is obvious. Which we'll get into that with Joel.
We have to get to it. Okay, we've I think we've been going for almost an hour now, and we've got to get to this yesterday. So we went to this church, and I want to come back to the big picture view too, because that's what fascinates me most, is like this predicament of how do we make things better for people. That's what it all boils down to. How do you make things better? And even people like T Swan who say we should do it this way. And I saw there's an ANCAP in the chat, which is, no offense, I didn't mean to single out ANCAP, but everybody is trying to figure out how do we make things better. At least people with good intent. The people with bad intent don't care. I think they're trying to figure out how much power can I accrue until I die.
Yeah, like, exactly. Yeah.
How much power and money and influence can I accrue and fame until I die? But that's the game they're playing. But most people with good intent are playing the game of how can we make things better for people? And some people are saying, oh, we need to be ANCAP, and others are saying, oh no, it's Marxism. And so I want to get back to that big picture thing. But before we do, the reason he's going to fix my mic before we do. My husband's here. Oh, thank you.
There we go.
You guys, this is Anthony Garcia music.
Breaking stuff.
This is my handsome husband. Okay, I won't flirt with you. I'm sorry. After we finish this conversation, should I
just hold it?
We're gonna take Mick out and show him all the work we've been doing in the backyard, or I should say all the work my husband's been doing, because I've been after surgery, I couldn't help him, but we were working on renovating the backyard. And he's been out there. It is so hot in Texas right now that he's been waking up at like 5:30 a.m. and going out there and doing backbreaking work until like 10 a.m.
It is. I forgot how hot it was here in Texas when I drove down
It
here.
is. Yeah.
Oh, it's a shock. You're not used to it. You're from way up north.
I'm just going to take a look at the chat while we're fixing the mics. Keely's
Oh,
here. Anthony the roadie.
Right in front of it. Okay.
I did see somebody say, I like how, where's that comment from earlier? Somebody said, I like how Keri's house looks like a grandma's house with lots of grandma furniture. Thank you. That's what I'm going for. The young people call it, let me tell you, the young people call it, have you heard this? They call it granny core.
No.
And I'm so offended. I'm like, it's just antiquing. You don't need to come up with a new cool young person name, granny core. It's just antiquing. It's just antiques.
Is that good? Can you hear me better now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways.
Okay. So yesterday we went to go check out this church and see for ourselves. What is it like?
Where do I begin? No. So they meet in like this like barbecue joint or restaurant or something.
Mm-hmm.
It's first thing I'll say is it feels very culty, which I've heard other people say this that have visited there. I have another friend who I was hanging out with this weekend who visited there and said, I think this was like maybe a year or two ago, and said that nobody talked to her. She was sitting there by herself. It was just weird. Everybody was kind of dressed the same. It's very cliquey and culty. That's kind of how I felt. I kind of noticed that right away when I was there. It was like, oh, everybody's like literally kind of wearing the same thing, and it's very uniform there. It seemed kind of lifeless, spiritually speaking. And maybe that's just my perception because I'm used to more of like a lively church environment. The church I go to right now is a little bit more, they're more like they're not Pentecostal, but they're a little bit more on the continuationist side. So it's a little bit more lively. Maybe I'm just used to that. And that just seemed like, I felt like I was in a Catholic church and it was just like spiritually dead, like just going through the religious mode.
Like you mean all ritual and no
like heart or joy.
Okay.
It seemed joyless. That's what I would say. Very uniform, cultic, and joyless.
So I also would describe it as culty, but I was trying to evaluate myself because I was thinking maybe this is just me bringing my own prejudice into it because that's what I'm expecting. And so I was really trying to step outside of myself and say, what is it about it that you find culty? Like how to explain that? And also going into it like I said, I know 3 families who used to go to that church and have left, and have at least one of those families has described it as a cult. I also know someone who's visited before who described it as culty. So I was aware that I might be going in with that preconceived notion. So I was trying to think about it. Now, one thing is a lot of the women wear head coverings, but that that's not necessarily a characteristic of, so what? If you have a lot of people who have the same belief and they believe that that's that pleases God, then I don't necessarily have a problem with that. Or people who dress like I love people when they dress modestly and when they dress up for church and stuff. So so why would I view like, oh, a lot of people wear that as culty? It wasn't that. I was thinking about it.
The attitude about that stuff that is perceived as culty. Because you're right, where it's like the culture in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with having different cultures or different expression, which a lot of these people, just exactly my point, would disagree with that, where they have this. And I grew, just for context, I grew up in more of like a fundamental Baptist, like IFB circles. My parents were never that really, but the schools I went to were, because they were the only Christian schools in the area, for example, in high school. And my parents wanted to send us to a Christian school. And so I'm familiar with that kind of like legalistic, culty, our way or the highway, our tradition of worship is superior, and this is the godly form of worship, and anyone doing other things, it's like they're lesser than in the kingdom of God, in a way is how it's perceived and treated. And I think I get a lot of those exact same vibes from these people, from a lot of
Yes.
these woke right people. And I think a lot of them are probably ex-IFB people, which I've heard at least from others tell me that. And if anyone's familiar with like IFB churches, it's a lot like that, but I would say worse in some ways, because at least the IFB circles that I was in, you could tell these people were genuine Christians. Like
Yes.
they were still kind, and they're full
of spirit.
Yeah, you could still tell with a lot of them that they were, and some of them, of course, not. But like these circles, though, these woke right Christian nationalist circles, I don't get that.
I don't get
at all.
That's why I would describe. Okay, so I'm trying to put it into words. It wasn't the head covering. It wasn't the dress or anything like that for me. It was, I didn't feel that joy or that spirit.
The judgment to like nobody talked to us besides one lady came up to us and was kind of weird. That was
bothered
weird.
me. Okay, let me tell you why she bothered me. Yeah, so one person greeted us, and it was, you know what she did? She did that smile where you smile just with the mouth and not with the eyes.
So
and
it's not genuine.
Yeah, it always puts me off. I always find it so fake. Like, don't even bother.
Yes.
like if you don't really mean it, don't come over here and do the fake. It's just creepy. It's like and I was trying to figure out why she was unsettling me because of what she was saying.
And she was like making really like intimidating eye contact and like the kind of the crazy eye lady. And I just remember I was like looking at you like, okay, this is a little strange. But she's the only person that said anything to us. Yeah. And which I felt a little strange. I've never been in a church where nobody says anything to me.
Yeah.
And like if you go to the church I'm going to now, if you walk in there, there's gonna be like 8 people saying something to you in the first 10 minutes of you being in there. Like it's very friendly. And which I think that's how church should be.
There were lots of people staring at us.
Lots of people staring at us. I was looking around during the service a lot. There'd just be people who's
but like not breaking the stare.
Yeah, it was really weird. It's again, that's what I mean where it comes off as judgmental and legalistic.
Yeah.
Because they're kind of like I was literally pretty much wearing what I'm wearing right now, pants on, and like long pants on, and they were, just, which is complete, like the church I go to, completely normal, shirts, t-shirt, that's what everyone's wearing. I'm just, maybe that's again what I'm used to.
I was dressed like a church lady.
Yeah, you were dressed more fitting for the occasion. But people were staring at me even right when we walked in because I'm not dressed like everybody else there. It's like, this is supposed to be church where it's supposed to be go beyond the such simple ways of analyzing people. I'm like imagining some homeless guy off the street that stumbles in there for help and like really needing a church to go to, or some ex-Satanist guy who just got saved and he's trying to find a church and that's the one nearest to him and he walks in there. What kind of response would they give him? So what I mean?
We have a lot of that when I talk about I didn't feel spirit, I didn't feel that joy that I'm used to like feeling in a church that's alive. It's because there's a lot of joyful repentant sinners who know how who are just so grateful for this second life, the second life that God has given us, like where he gives you a new heart. And there's all kinds of reformed former just hooligans and I just it looked like that. It looked kind of Steppenwife. It didn't look like there were a lot of which is fine if there's not a lot of new converts or anything, but it definitely, there was a certain look to everyone. And the other thing I was trying to gauge while I was there was I was trying to gauge. Now I have thoroughly made up my mind. I took a long time to do so because I used to like I said, Webben also. Yeah. And I really didn't want it to be true. And I kept paying attention to his, like about a year ago, I started paying attention to his posts. I was like, what's happening with him? And I started to notice like he's behaving in a way that's not befitting of a Christian, much less a Christian pastor, like a shepherd, right? Yes. That's not the way a shepherd behaves. No. And that's not the way he treats people, and the deceptive, like manipulative Machiavellian stuff that he's supporting, his secret, like Telegram chats that leaked where he's sicking people on other people and sending anonymous to go after people. We need the
anonymous accounts to harass people, to knock people off the internet.
I cannot even imagine if that were my pastor. Like I have to have a pastor who, where it talks about, like, is it in Timothy, right? Where they're talking about all the qualities of an elder.
I think is that 1 Timothy 2, and it lists like, don't be not anger, not a drunkard, not quarrelsome. and you go through these qualifications and you line them up with a lot of these woke right pastors, they hardly mean any of these.
They don't fit any of it. So I couldn't even imagine going there, because I hold my pastor to such a high standard. And if I were to see him behaving like that, I'd feel like, what? Like, I need you to keep me in check because you're the pastor, right? And that's the way the Bible talks about it too.
Yeah.
The Bible talks about all of you should become teachers. You're going to be held to a greater standard. And so I was trying to evaluate. I'm sorry, I'm kind of running with this, but let me just finish my thought. I was trying to evaluate, looking around at everyone. Do they know what he's like online, and do they know the kind of stuff he does and says? And how many of these people are aware? Are they on X, or are they on platforms like this, or are they not aware? And what were your thoughts on that?
So I think we kind of mentioned this a little bit yesterday after the service. I think that a lot of the people in that congregation have a clue as to what's actually going on. And that's another reason why I perceive this as cult. You even see guys like Joel Webb and Eric Kahn, which Eric Kahn's not part of Joel Webb's church. He's in Ogden, Utah. But the people in this movement, they talk about how women shouldn't be, your wife shouldn't be on Twitter. Your kids, get everybody off the internet, and they
except for us,
except for me, except for me. If I'm Joel Webb, I think honestly, the underlying motivation behind that isn't to protect your family or to protect your wife. It's so that they don't actually see what's going on.
Yeah,
and it's a way to hide the true intentions or the true behavior of what's going on in the cult, or the true agenda of the cult, you could say. And that's kind of how cults operate, where there's like a select group of people that understand fully what's happening, and they understand the ideology and the agenda, and everybody else maybe is in put partially in the light as far as understanding, but it's very veiled and they don't really understand what's happening. And I kind of got that sense when I was there, because a lot of those people nobody said anything to us. A lot of them looked kind of what we were just explaining, but most, like a good chunk of them, looked like they were friendly people. They were just, you know what I mean? It was just part weird.
Of a weird. I tend to agree with you. I think a lot of them don't have any idea, and they probably don't get a lot of the Twitter references, because he puts a lot of Twitter and YouTube crap into his sermons now.
Yeah, he did that yesterday. A little bit. Yeah. And
I don't think they get a lot of those references where he's making digs at people and doing stuff like that in his sermon. But I do think that, like in a lot of cults, there's an inner circle of people who are fully aware of what he's and supportive of what he's doing and of what he really is. What about him? I was trying to get a grasp for him. I was like, does he know that does he drink his own Kool-Aid and think?
Yeah, I was trying to think about that. One of my friends asked me that yesterday when I got, I'm here hanging out with friends in Austin, and I was telling them, they were all like, I got back and they're like, wow, how was it? What happened?
Well, you went to a cult. What happened?
They didn't capture you. And that was one of the questions one of my friends asked me. I was trying to think about that. Like, does he believe what he's saying, or is it just grift, a complete grift? I don't know.
I always ask this about cult leaders, and I watch a lot of cult documentaries, and I try to figure out if they really believe what they're putting out there. And with him, I get the impression he knows for sure that he is a false shepherd. That's my opinion.
Think so?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't think he buys his own crap. I think he knows. Now, some of them I think buy into their own stuff, but I don't. I think he's fully aware.
Just like the way he talks, it just doesn't sound genuine. I don't know what, I can't put my finger on what it is exactly, but you can tell even yesterday in the sermon, at least I got this impression. It was very kind of what you're saying, is very politically driven, and it's like he wasn't so as much concerned with teaching a biblical theology over the text. It was leading to the conclusions that he drew at the end.
Yes,
and which were these political conclusions, more or less. And I've watched other sermons from his online, and they were kind of what you said. That's very similar to how they've been going, at least lately, that I've noticed. And
where he's like,
that's where I'm like, maybe then what you're saying is true, because how could you do that and not understand that that's what you're doing?
I think he's fully aware because of a couple of the things that have come out online. Number one, he had a 10-month sexual relationship with a parishioner in California when he was a pastor, and he hid it from his elders when he was being confirmed for, was it the Acts 29 church or something?
I think that was that the Vineyard?
Yeah, at the
Is that what it
Vineyard,
was?
he had the 10-month-long
Oh,
sexual
and then he hit
relationship.
it from Acts 29.
Then he hid it from the
Yeah.
Acts 29 elders when they're telling you this is when you come forward with all of your sins and everything, and he hid it from them. And then later they gave him some kind of church discipline, and what they mentioned in the church discipline was all these things that are basically says you should not be these things. And he's quarrelsome, he's vain, he's full of ego and all this
It
stuff.
makes me think twice about Acts 29. Like,
Yeah.
'cause I used to be very critical of them, and I think for some legitimate reasons they were pushing some of this woke stuff that, you know, people that were rebuking the woke left were not a fan of. But I think I've become a little bit more understanding of why they would reject someone like Chase Davis or Joel Webbin or some of these guys. Because watching how they behave now, is this like, were they behaving like that when they were at their church and people at the church were upset about it and told Acts 29 about it, or other people? And you get a different picture of what's actually going on here.
Yes. And so what did he do? Well, he got put under church discipline, and then he balked at it eventually, and then left and said he's coming to Texas instead of staying under church discipline and going to start a new church. And then later, when this 10-month-long affair, you know, sexual relationship with a parishioner came out, like an abusive power, he doubled down and instead of saying, I acknowledge this, and I instead of showing repentance like a Christian would, like, I'm not saying a display, like actual, like having fruits of that, like where you see that, right? He doubled down and was like, it doesn't count because I wasn't a real pastor.
Yeah.
It doesn't count. Like, what?
Just avoiding any and all accountability. Even now, like you said, where he left his past church in California, and then he actively ran away from church discipline, which that should immediately disqualify you from further ministry, period. That alone. And then he did he start this new church, or was it already existing? And then
No, he started it, but there was some sort of threatened lawsuit that I think they've since settled and figured everything out because of the money that was given from the church to come and plant this one. And but he had a falling out, like basically the past littered with these like falling outs.
Yeah, now he's surrounded himself with just complete
yes men. There's no church authority. There's just him at the top. And I'm like, this is kind of crazy with these. Yeah, you got this structure like a lot of cults where there's just yes men around you, and you're not. There's no one to hold you accountable or to put you under discipline if it's necessary. And all this to say, he knows what. I read an old blog of his that someone sent me, where I think it's the most honest he's ever been, and it was him talking about his vanity and his need for attention and power, and I was like, wow, where is this guy? Because this guy
slip.
But this guy, it's humble, and it's I can respect that because you're being honest about like who you are and what you are, and you're at least the Joel that he was when he wrote that. I felt like this is a man who knows he needs Jesus, like. Right. I could see myself in him. I can see other, like, this person seems real. Okay. But he's not in that place of honesty anymore. And so you mentioned that his voice and stuff, his voice sounds like, to me, did you ever watch the documentary about Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. I'm not sure where it was, but you've got to watch this. So she was this tech person who basically defrauded and raised all this money for this startup called Theranos, and she idolized Steve Jobs. Okay. And so she sort of remade herself to look like Steve Jobs. She started wearing his black turtlenecks. Okay.
Oh yeah.
This is her new image. She basically put on like a skin suit of Steve Jobs, and she even lowered her and affected a voice when she would do interviews about Theranos, because she read articles that said women with a deeper voice have more trust. People trust them more. So she would do interviews where she talked about, with just one drop of blood, we can cure. But then it wasn't her real voice.
Yeah.
And I got the sense from him. I bring all this up because I feel like he studied Matt Walsh for a long time and was like, I want to look like that. And then he put this on.
He didn't used to look like that or talk like that as much, at least that I've heard.
No, and his voice is
like a persona.
Fake. His voice is so fake. It doesn't sound real. Like when you see him doing these, and again, this is new. It didn't used to be like this. This is all new. It's like a persona.
It's so strange to watch, and it's more obviously fake. And again, because I've been watching him on YouTube for years, and I've kind of seen the evolution happen to some degree.
Yes.
And it's like, this is not the same guy. I'd feel like that, at least that first started doing this. He used to seem just more kind.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Like normal.
Yeah, he used to just seem more normal. And now, which is why I didn't seem to have a problem with him at first. And it's just gotten, obviously, this is just a grift, it seems like. And it's, I don't know. And even yesterday, everything was so monotone, from the songs to, which they only sung like 2 or 3 songs at the end, to the intro where they did the kind of liturgy, reciting things back. So monotone. It seemed very duty driven, which was another thing I noticed, which is different than churches I've been to, especially the one I'm going to now, which, one of the critiques from these Christian nationalist types is churches need to put more emphasis on the law and duty and obedience. And I think that's true to a large degree.
Because the leftist churches don't.
Yeah, but that should never outshadow why we're here in the first place as Christians. We're here because of the gospel, and we're here because we're not made right before God because of our works. We're not made right before God because we try really hard, or because we have a certain culture that we've adopted, or any of this stuff. But it's like the emphasis is on that. It reminds me of the IFB legalism crap that I was around at some level in high school and a little bit before that. It's this duty driven, like, religiosity. It almost feels Pharisaical in a way. As the phrase that kept popping into my head as I was sitting there watching everything was the phrase from Jesus. He says something like, speaking about the Pharisees, do what they say and not what they do.
Exactly, because they speak as if they believe, just like putting Christ as king in your bio, but they don't behave that way.
So I still have the pamphlets from yesterday. You read through a lot of that. It's like, theologically, I agree with a lot of it.
Yeah.
I agree with the whole liturgy thing they did in the beginning. There wasn't anything in there that I'd necessarily disagreed with, theologically speaking. But it's the hypocrisy. It's who's telling it to you that's revealing. And his whole sermon was about, which we'll get into this.
Let's get into it. What did you think about the sermon?
It's like, there's a lot of points theologically that he made that I agreed with.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that he's the one delivering it. It's completely hypocritical. So he talked a lot about, having a high sense of, the more revelation God gives you, the more responsible you are to respond to that and to obey, right? So he used the example of, he was preaching through, let me get this.
He was talking about John the Baptist.
Yeah, it was Matthew 11. So it was that passage where, Jesus is talking about John the Baptist, and how John the Baptist is, the greatest of all men born of women at the time, right? But then he says, like, even the least of you will be greater in the kingdom of heaven. And he kind of was talking about this concept where even John the Baptist had less revelation than we do today, and his faith was strong, and and so, given the fact that we have more revelation today, we all have the word of God in our hands. God's revealed himself to a greater extent today than he did even then, because obviously we're post-resurrection and all this. Then we have more to respond and to act and to be obedient, and theoretically I agree with that concept, but again, he's implicating himself, because he's saying he has all of this revelation. He in front of him more revelation than even John the Baptist had, and so wouldn't that give Joel Webbin more responsibility to obey?
So I kept thinking he was going to bring in that verse. We were
James 3.
Yeah, James 3. Not many of you should become teachers, because basically it's like you're going to be judged more harshly. My pastor talks about this, about how he approaches being a pastor with fear and trembling.
Yeah.
Like, it scares him and keeps him up at night that he's in charge of this many souls, like that he's responsible for that, because it is taking on this burden of saying, yes, I know I'm going to be judged more harshly, and you have to take it seriously. And he didn't bring up that verse. Webbin didn't bring up that verse, which is weird, because it would have fit, right?
Tied perfect, but that would have implicated him in a direct way. And so I think that I would assume probably that's not why because how can you read a passage like that and teach what he's teaching there and not think about that's like such a clear verse about that.
Yeah.
It ties right into that exact concept. But again, it's dodging accountability. It didn't seem to be applicable to him directly.
He didn't see that he doesn't see himself in, and this gets back to, does he know that he's a fake or not? I think he knows he's a fake, and then he just says he will say things that apply to himself, that he pretends don't apply to. I think that's the way I would put
it's
it.
like he doesn't seem to view himself as also being a subject of the thing that he's teaching.
Yes, like when he preached about ravenous wolves, not during yesterday's sermon, but previously. I don't know if you saw that, and I was thinking, this is the passage about false shepherds and ravenous wolves, and hello.
Or at the end of the sermon, or maybe I think it was after the songs, he made that statement where he quoted, that passage where it says, I'm blanking on where the passage is, but it says something like, what is it for me to gain the whole world but lose his soul? And he talked about how, our primary focus should be Jesus. We shouldn't care so much about, earthly power. And I just gave you that look. I was just like, what did he really just do this? That's like, that would be always ridiculous as someone like Joel Osteen saying. You know what I mean? That seems to be his primary focus, is building earthly authority, caring about political dominion and power.
Caring about followers
and getting clicks and building a Anon army in his name.
What did he say when he said about that other pastor? He said, "This is why young men will continue to come to me. No one will remember your name."
Yeah.
And I saw that. That was the first for me. That's when I was around the time I was trying to figure out what I thought about him. When I saw that, I was like, "Oh, I see it now."
He gave some vague apology about that statement.
Did he?
But then his behavior doesn't change.
No.
So it's like, you're just saying that because you were he's just saying that because he was put on blast about that on the internet.
And I saw the face of greed and vanity when he yelled.
It was like it was like that scene on Lord of the Rings where Bilbo Baggins,
yes,
the real him showed for a second. Yeah. There's so many of those examples with these guys, especially with Joel. I think Joel is one of the most obnoxious and sinister of all of them as far as that goes. He's the most obvious in some ways.
Yeah.
And it's like, he doesn't seem to see that about himself. Again, he either does see that about himself and he doesn't care, or he's just so blind spiritually to his own depravity and then how that manifests in his ministry, especially online. It's like, everybody can see it that's watching this.
Yeah.
If people are watching this and Joel, and you go to that church, pay attention to this. This stuff is important. You don't want to be led by somebody with that lack of self-awareness and character. It's just not what you want in a pastor. You don't want to be led by someone who refuses accountability, who surrounds himself with yes men. That's a recipe for disaster. That
way lies darkness.
Yeah.
Can I look at your pamphlet really quickly? I want to ask you about, there was another part where it was funny because that part of the definitely applied to him, where he
also preached on masculinity. That was like
that part.
It was masculinity, and the last one was something about waging violence. Why we need to wage violence. And again, it seems like his sermons, the ones I've listened to, were about justifying his own online ministry and the tactics he uses. Like, we need to be hard, and we can't be wearing soft clothing and things like that. It's like, and then it's like he's up there in a soft suit.
Yes. That's why I was like, okay, this is the part because he's talking about how where they're describing the way that
don't be like politicians. He said it's like he wants to be one of those people.
Yeah, they're describing the way that John the Baptist was wearing rugged outdoor clothing, right? And he had his rugged austerity directly contrasts with the soft attire of those who dwell in kings' houses. His camel's hair garments and wilderness dwelling were outward signs of inward grit. And he goes, true ministers of the word must be masculine, not merely male. And then he like you said, he made this point about they shouldn't be dressed in soft clothing like politicians, and that's what he's dressing like.
Exactly what he's dresses like.
I could not think of a softer man and a softer tailored. Like, he has a consultant who tailors your clothing and to give them a certain look in the like. You are the embodiment of you're wearing the king's attire.
Not wanting to be like a politician.
Right.
He would love to be a politician. And all he seems to care about, at least on his online ministry, is getting tight with people in political authority, whether it's podcasters, media influencers, people like Elijah Schaefer sucking up to Candace Owens or these different people. It's like that is exactly what he is.
Yeah.
It's this
he
paradox.
is a politician.
He is a politician. Yeah. For all intents and purposes, he's a politician.
I don't think rugged or grit or any of those
but
words.
He has the big beard and he drinks whiskey and smokes cigars, and therefore he's a man, as if that's what the text is actually referring to. That's not biblical masculinity. That's a caricature and like a cosplay that they put on to make themselves look manly, but then their character is just a complete joke.
No, but it's all out. I don't think even with all of that disguise, like, oh, let me get a beard and let me smoke a cigar. None of that. Nobody would ever honestly say, oh, they would never use the words grit and masculine. And what was the other one I said? They would never use those. It was the third one, not here, but it was basically he rugged. Yeah. Nobody would ever say he's got this rugged aesthetic. He's like,
no, he looks like a politician.
Yeah. No, yeah.
Just going by that standard, especially a passage like this, is the Bible teaching men that we have to wear like really rough clothing that's not comfortable? No, it's not giving us a prescription of the kind of sewing materials that we're allowed to use for our clothing, right? It's not.
Where's your camel's hair?
It's not what it's teaching. Is it saying we have to is it saying we have to eat bugs in the wilderness and like do all this crazy stuff? No, obviously that's not what it's teaching. The focus of that is his character and his resolve to do what's right and to preach the gospel no matter what's going to happen. That's the most masculine thing, right? So, and obviously Jesus is the perfect embodiment of that. It has nothing to do with all these extra things. And I think you see this a lot with these woke right Christian nationalist circles that kind of mirrors the secular red pill movement, the manosphere stuff, where it's like this caricature of masculinity, this Andrew Tate caricature of masculinity, where they're smoking the cigars and they got the beards, they've got their glass of whiskey, and they're doing the podcast. They're hunters and they're all this stuff. They own guns, and none of that stuff in and of itself is bad. But if that's what the source of your masculinity is, and you're trying to project that stuff as if that's what makes you a man, especially biblically, like that's just way off. The best description I think in the Bible of what a man really is, at least as for us, how we Christians should behave, is that passage in 1 Timothy 2 where it talks about the qualifications for an elder. You're not quarrelsome. You're not a drunkard. You try to live at peace with all people. You have this resolve to do what's right. You can teach. You can lead. These are things that
people speak well of you. You manage your family well.
Yep. You provide for your family. Like that's what biblical masculinity is. It's not all this extra stuff that's just a power move in a sense. It's like a cosplay character that they're putting
on. Total cosplay. It's lipstick on a pig.
Yep.
It's like, me put this lipstick on and then I'm pretty.
It's like the Pharisees. It's like the whitewashed tombs. Let me look the part on the outside of whatever I'm trying to present, but then inside you're just a sleazy politician.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing. I wanted to bring up one other part that I found, just for anybody who's curious about it, that I found just wildly interesting. So I mentioned I know someone who's visited, and then I know 3 families who have left. So without being specific, I will say one of those families, I had been told about how there's this emphasis on outside of the church services, hanging out, drinking, smoking, doing all these things, right? Like, and sort of a pressure to do these things. And
you're part of the club then.
You're part of the inner,
do these activities that we think are manly.
And so given that I had already heard that, I thought it was interesting that they have this bold about when they do the, you asked if I was going to take communion, and I said, yeah.
Oh, that was another thing, yeah.
But then I read this, and it's bolded, guys, and it says, we serve wine, all caps, bold, wine for the Lord's Supper, not juice, all caps, bold, not juice. Not terrible juice.
I laughed when you showed me that. I was like, "There's no way this is ridiculous."
But I know that they think they're badass or something for saying this. So they go on to say the reason
we drink the hard stuff here. That's like what it came. It's such a cope. It's such a LARP.
Not juice. Yeah. Okay, so they go on to say the reason they do this is because the Bible clearly prescribes wine. The menu for the Lord's Supper is set by the Lord Himself, and He's determined wine to be the appropriate drink. Okay, so I was thinking, well, before I say what I was thinking about this part, you said to me, I wonder if they're going to have
unleavened bread,
the unleavened Jewish
because if
bread.
they're going to be consistent with the meal, exactly how it was at the Passover, and they're going to have the unleavened bread. What do they have, like Wonder Bread or something?
Yeah, so I go up
I don't
there.
think Jesus was serving Wonder Bread at the Passover.
I go up there, and I was thinking they're going to have like the unleavened, because we have this unleavened bread cracker thing at our church. And I was like, that's probably what they're going to have. So I went up there I did want to take communion, but I thought surely though they'll have grape juice even though it says not juice, all caps, surely they'll have it for alcoholics like me. Right. Like I'm not gonna take. The Bible even talks about how, the verses about how like what's good for this person may not be good for this person.
Yeah,
like somebody might
people's conscience and
somebody can eat meat and maybe another person can't eat meat or whatever. So I cannot drink. I can't. Right. And I am, it'll be 6 years sober in October. So thank you, God. Never thought I'd be able to say that.
11 almost forced you to break that yesterday.
Well, go down there and I'm thinking, okay, so surely they have some Reformed alcoholics here. They're going to have the juice option. I get down there. No, it's just wine. It's just wine. And so I was like, well, I guess I'll just take the bread then and not the cup. So I took the bread and go back to my seat. And I think it was Wonder Bread.
It was like, you showed me. You're like, this is not.
It was like white sandwich bread.
Yeah, it was white sandwich bread. It's so ridiculous. They're gonna make that big of a deal about it in their pamphlet to hand out to people at church about we only drink wine. This is what they're tells us to do. Again, there's the legalism coming out because that's not it doesn't actually prescribe a specific, like that's not the point of the communion. Is emphasizing that you have alcohol in your drink.
You better have alcohol in it.
It's so stupid. It misses the whole point.
It misses the whole point. It's a ritual anyway. Yeah. Like it's
But anyways, but it's like they weren't even consistent enough to get unleavened bread.
No.
It's ridiculous.
Well, that's a Jewish.
That just shows they don't actually care about being consistent with Scripture. They just need to make the point that we drink alcohol here. This is like we're
an alcohol
like it's
church.
Like they're trying to be offensive. It's like
yes.
This is I think they're just trying to be offensive.
Yes, they go too far. It's like an overcorrection for leftism in every way, and every possible way.
Even like again, this is very similar to the IFB circles. This is a lot of what IFB, independent fundamental Baptist stuff. This is how it emerged. It was a response against liberalism in the early 1900s, and they went way too far with it to where they're like having a guitar at church as a sin. Wearing clothes that don't go to your ankles is a sin. Like it's that kind of stuff. This is not biblical. This is your personal preferences and standards. You're free to do that if you want, but then to hold that over the people of God as if that's what God requires of us, that's legalism. And you kind of see that with things like this, even with the small example like communion here, how they handle this and have a bulletin. They're this extra biblical standard that's not actually required in Scripture over you as if this is what God's telling you to do and believe. That's like the same kind of self-righteous crap the Pharisees were about.
The legalism
they had all
these
extra rules that surrounded the law of God, and they held those over you as well. And Jesus was harsher on those people than anyone else.
Yeah.
So
somebody, Texas Sheep Lady said, "Why would you take the communion like at an ungodly church?" And I just wanted to answer that. Why join the table of the ungodly? Well, I do think he's a false shepherd, and he's taking people away from God actively in the same way that woke left preachers do. But I kind of feel like he can't corrupt the table of God. That's how I felt about it anyway. Maybe I was wrong to want to participate in it, but I also participated in the songs because I love some of those songs, and you can't corrupt what I'm singing to God, whether the person who's up there leading it is a charlatan or not. Like, you don't have that power to defile it. And so that's why I was like, well, I'm going to partake in it. And plus I just wanted to see how they do different things. There were some, let me pay a compliment. Because I've mostly criticized.
Yeah.
I'll pay a couple compliments. One, I love the doxology. It's like my favorite song to sing at church. And they sang the doxology at the end with praise hands up to God. And I
Yeah.
love that. What a great way to end a service. And I like the song choices. I like the way everyone is. I do like when people put a little effort into like churches is welcoming. Like you said, anybody should be able to come dress anyway. God's not going to reject you, so you shouldn't be rejecting people based on how they dress. However, once you're a believer, I do like when people take a little bit, make it special. Like you're going to the house of God, so I like the fact that everybody was dressed up. Like some of the men had like vests on and stuff, and I was like, oh, that guy, he took care with his outfit. Like that's really nice to see.
Yeah.
And so this is just an aesthetic I'm just complimenting some of the aesthetics. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I like that. And that families are certainly encouraged there. There were lots of families.
Yeah, there's
and
a lot
that's
of kids,
great.
which
Yeah.
that's good to see.
That's great to see.
I feel bad for
I think
these families that they're being led by Joel.
I agree.
And again, I think a lot of these families probably don't really understand what's happening.
I agree.
But that's good to see. That's something you don't see a lot, and especially churches around Austin. It's a lot of younger people, 20s, 30s, at least here. You go to churches and there's no kids here. There's no families. It's just a bunch of immature 25-year-olds who think they know everything, and they're not actually being spiritually led or even encouraged to start families or any of this stuff. And I'm saying this, I don't have a family yet or anything like that, but the point is like it's good to see that in Christian communities and circles.
I did feel bad for them though, because I feel like they need a real shepherd. I mean, that's how
cults also encourage people to have kids for the wrong, but it's for the wrong reasons.
Yes.
So it's like it could go either way. Yeah. It wasn't, again, this isn't like an indictment on everybody that was there. I don't know anyone that was there.
Mm-hmm.
The only people I know are the people that are allowed on the internet, like Wesley Todd and Joel Weapon and that third guy that's on the show.
I think he's called the third guy.
He was the guy that was up there doing the liturgy.
I know.
Stuff.
I made a joke of it. I'm saying,
yeah.
Nobody knows his name.
Nobody knows his name. He's just the guy with the gray beard.
He's the yes man of the two yes men.
Yeah,
he's the one that people
the
don't
yes
know.
Man of the yes man of the ringleader. Anyways, but I'm sure a lot of people there are genuine Christians.
Yes, I think so.
I'm sure they just are naive and misled. I don't know. It was an interesting experience. I'm glad we went. And saw it close.
Now there is another cult up in Waco that I would like to visit. Oh my gosh, I just realized Waco's famous for cults, but this is not. This is a totally different one.
One that the ATF
no. So next time you come to Texas, if you want to continue a
is it
streak
like another
of visiting,
Christian nationalist thing, or
no? I think it's a different flavor of. But I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
We can just every time you come to Texas.
Every time we come to Texas, we're going to go to a different culty kind of place and do a video about it.
Yeah. Just figure it out.
Yeah.
Well, Mikale, so just to return before we wrap this up, I want to return to some of the big picture stuff because that was kind of interesting to talk about. Unless you had more you wanted to add about yesterday.
I think we covered it. Like the sermon itself, which I'm sure they'll post it on YouTube if they haven't already. Anyone wants to go watch it, you'll see what we're talking about in the sermon. It was about masculinity and being a man, which is again just incredibly. Everything about it was just ironic. That's the takeaway. I'm just sitting there when he would, talk about being a man biblically and just watching him how he presents himself and understanding all the stuff that he's said online. It's like he's the furthest thing from that. And he talked about violence, why we need to be spiritually violent, which I don't think he means that just spiritually. If I was going to go out on a limb and guess.
Yep.
The whole thing was just weird. It was weird. It was hypocritical. It wasn't friendly for the most part. I don't know. That was my experience.
Yeah.
But
I'm also glad we went, and I don't know. I was thinking about there was a lot to digest, as you said afterwards. And I went to my church, as a palate cleanser. Thankfully, my church meets at 2, so I can visit other places in the morning, which is cool. Yeah, my disinfectant, which was great. But I was thinking a lot about it, and to get back to that question of like, how is this? Why is this? Why does any of this matter? To me, I think it bothers me so much because it reminds me of how much the woke left pastors and churches bothered me.
Yeah.
When I first came to Christ, I was looking for Christ. I was looking for truth. And and as I was trying to figure out, before I found my home church, I was visiting different churches and stuff. I went to some Catholic churches. The first churches I ever went to were not even Christian. The first one was the only one I would have walked through because I wasn't a believer then.
Yeah.
It was like a non-denominational, Oprah Winfrey associated spiritual center.
Oh,
and
interesting.
that was like
Wow.
the first place I ever went. And they bring
Yeah.
in elements of Christianity, mostly based on Christianity, but they bring in other faiths as well. And so that was the first place I ever went. And then I started going to different Christian types of churches, denominations. I think the camera just went out. Oh no. Let me see. We'll see. Maybe they can still hear us. Probably. If you guys can hear us, thanks for your patience.
Swapping out the battery.
We're swapping out the battery and we'll be right back. Oh, he says keep talking though. Okay, well then I'll just tell you while you're waiting for the video. But while I was going to these different places, I did have people recommending places to me. Thank you, babe. And somebody who kind of like leftist, some people I knew, I was still leaving the leftist world.
Yeah.
I still have a lot more friends in the leftist world than I do now. And before I had been completely unfriended by a lot. Anyway, they were saying, oh, you should come to my church. You'll like it. It's so non-judgmental and it's so open and welcoming and affirming. Yeah. And when they were describing it, I was like recoiling. No, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for God.
Yeah.
I'm looking for truth. I'm not looking for
like a cultural state.
Right.
Which, speaking of Webbin's church, that's kind of what it felt like. It felt like everything they were doing was to try and kind of beat the left. And not just to prove they're not liberals.
In fact, he said, this is how we win. And this is how we.
I think he even made some comment about like hierarchy. Even hell has a hierarchy. It's like everything has to be this like, we're not them thing. They're defined by who they aren't. And I don't think you should at some level be defined by who you aren't. But when that's like your driving force is we're not liberals and we do everything the complete opposite. If the liberals have a guitar at their church, we're not going to have a guitar. It's this IFB philosophy.
They're reactionary.
It's all reactionary.
Yeah.
And they're not seeking Jesus then at that point.
Yeah. And so that's kind of how I feel about it. Because I felt that way about the people recommending leftist churches to me was sort of, no, I'm looking for God. I'm looking for truth. I'm not looking for a quote unquote non-judgmental place. Are you kidding me? That's what the world offers. I want actual truth. Like I want God. And so this offends me on the same level because you've got people coming there, presumably looking for truth. Hopefully you've got new converts and people who are looking for God who are coming there. And what are you doing? You're directing them away from God and towards this other belief system at odds, like this Machiavellian power at all costs, racial hierarchy crap that you're pushing. Like what? They're coming looking for salvation and you're like turning them on this path and using them. And it deeply bothers me the same way that woke left pastors
Christianity for their own purposes. Again, just like the Pharisees were doing, they were using the Old Testament, law. They were using the scriptures that they had at the time. They were using the temple worship as a way to enrich themselves and build political authority for themselves and kind of put themselves on this pedestal above all the people.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what these people are doing in a sense, where they're using a Christian identity to push a bunch of things that aren't Christian, that aren't biblical, and they're using it as a way to deflect criticism in a sense. I mean, it goes back to that phrase, like, no enemies to the right, or what's the other one that they have?
No enemies to the right, no punching. That's what the left used to say. They would say, you don't punch down, and they define what's down and what's up.
They say no enemies to the right, but then they say we're the furthest right. In other words, you're not allowed to criticize us.
Right, but they can criticize everyone.
They can criticize everybody else.
And they do.
Everyone else is left of them, and they can criticize to the left. But again, this is what they do theologically and with Christianity in general, is they use it in that same way. we're Christians. How dare you slander a brother in Christ? You always see that from these guys. If you say anything negative about them, which I'm sure we're going to get that on. It's on here once we post
yeah,
this.
but that's all they do.
That's all they do.
That's all they do is slander brothers in Christ. That's when
they're allowed to criticize, like, or their view on like mocking people biblically. We're allowed to mock everybody else, but as soon as you mock us, oh, you're slandering a brother in Christ. How dare you?
And they're not brothers in Christ. He is a false shepherd.
Same thing Candace was doing to
Seth.
To Seth. Yeah.
Well, these guys, like I said, when I first started getting red flags from him and going, what is going on? I started paying attention before I formed my opinion. It took me a while. The stuff I was seeing at first from him, just the unbiblical, like I said, like the behavior that was not Christ-like, not befitting a pastor. And some of it was attacking and going after people like Samuel Say and Ali Bestaki. What is he doing? Why?
Right.
And for not for anything specific they had done or said either. Not saying I disagree with them on this, but really maliciously
just
going after
fun
them.
Of them for different things.
Yes, because and criticizing them because one's a woman and because one's black. What?
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
And it just, I'm like, I can't. So yeah, they slander all the time. They attack all the time. And I'll tell you this: don't. When they say don't attack people to the left, when leftists say that, or when these guys say don't attack people to the right,
our tribe. It's always very tribalistic.
Yes.
Yeah.
And what they actually mean is, I'm a sociopath. Don't attack sociopaths.
Yeah. All they mean is we're doing bad stuff and we don't want you to say anything about it. That's what that means.
The only people who say that, I'm convinced, are sociopaths.
Because if you're like an honest person, you want people that are going to hold you accountable. Because you don't want to go off the rails and say things that are wrong or do things that are wrong. But it's like they actively avoid that. They're
like, no criticism over here.
Yeah. You're not allowed to criticize.
You're not allowed to criticize me.
It reminds me of what, and I'm sorry if you're Catholic watching this, but it reminds me of what a lot of Catholics do, where especially the Catholic Church in general, where they kind of put themselves on this pedestal of authority. We speak on behalf of God. What we say is infallible, speaking of the Catholic Church and, you know, the ecumenical councils and all this stuff. And really what they're doing is they're saying, we're not allowed to be criticized. Whatever we say is from God. Therefore, if you criticize us, you're criticizing God. They kind of do the same thing with their own, but they're the authority. We're the true right wing. We're the like lone bulwark fighting against the left, and we're the only ones doing it properly, and we're the only ones that are going to succeed. And if you criticize us, well, you're just siding with the leftists.
So crazy.
Which is why I get called a communist like every day by somebody on Twitter. It's like, I'm the furthest. They're the communists. They believe in National Socialism, all the stuff we talked about before. It's so unbelievable.
Wait a minute, let me tell you something. I get called a leftist on X lately.
Yeah.
I get called a right-wing Nazi on Facebook.
Yeah. Well, that probably means you're in a good spot if both extremes hate you. Yeah.
But they collect in different places, because it's these crazy woke right Nazis who are calling me a leftist, and they're on X, and then it's all these leftists wokies who call me a Nazi, and they're on Facebook. Yeah. So I'm like, oh, okay, this is more about like knowing which audience is where, and so it's definitely perspective dependent.
It's hilarious. I've had a similar experience. You know, a couple of years ago, I had a YouTube channel. It wasn't that big, but I was doing it for fun with one of my friends, and we were getting, we'd get comments like, you guys are a bunch of Nazis and things like that. And we're like, we're not Nazis. This is ridiculous. And now I'm being called a communist from the neo-Nazi. So the communists think I'm a Nazi and the Nazis think I'm a communist. I'm like, I don't know which one am I?
You know why they do that? Because they offer you a false choice.
Yeah.
They say
have to pick one or the other.
They both say that. They both say you have to pick one or the other.
If you're not a Nazi, you're a communist. If you're not a communist, you're a Nazi. And it's like this dialectic. Yeah. I forget who. I think did you ever read? Do you know who Blake Callens is? Did you ever read his book about Christian nationalism? I definitely
haven't read the book, but I know the name from X.
So he talks about that a little bit in his book. He calls it the authoritarian proposition, where they create this false binary, and you have to choose one or the other. Yes. And then they justify their extreme measures because of the other extreme. And it's just this back and forth crazy pendulum swing. But yeah, you don't have to choose one or the other.
You don't.
You should not choose one or the other. There's there's more options than just those two. And I think most people in the United States understand that to some degree. At least I would hope.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people don't, obviously, look at all the crazy stuff going on. But I think more people in real life are more sane and understanding of that than a lot of the same results you get on X or Facebook.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just hope we don't get evil.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But yeah.
Well, thank you guys for being here today. I think we're gonna wrap it up. You guys can tell them where they can find you next.
So Real Mikale Olson, REALMIKALE username, or just type in Mikale Olson. And there you'll see all the links. It's the same username on Instagram and YouTube. All of it's the same, so it's easy to find. Or just Google my name, all of it will come up. And then you'll find a link tree and all that, and you can find all the articles I've written and interviews I've done like this. So yeah.
I'm so glad that you were here, and I'm grateful that you are so forgiving. And also the audience, I'm grateful you're forgiving with all the tech issues. And look, I'm just a lady. I'm not trying to, I know I need to step it up.
We're not Joe Rogan here.
We're not Joe Rogan. But thank you for being so, forgiving and gracious. I appreciate it. I'm very grateful for my husband who helped us out today. So, okay, guys, I'll see you later. Take care.
See ya.